All right, welcome back, Social Foxers, to another Spotlight training. So in this video, we are going to be going over how to build out a newsletter style workflow that will automatically add new people, so new subscribers to your workflow. It automatically adds them to the correct week, to the week that you're in. So instead of a traditional workflow where you have your first email and then you have a wait step and then you have your next email, so that if you added them into that workflow, they would always get the first email and then they would go down the line. This workflow is set up where they get filtered when they come in based on what week it is, like what week they signed up for your newsletter, and they get the most current or recent newsletters. So fair warning, this is one of those that is going to look really complicated as we build it out, but I promise you it will make your newsletter sending so much easier once you just take a little bit of time to learn the flow of it. So let's just go ahead and dive in and we'll show you what we're talking about. So since this is a workflow, we're going to be in the automations area. So over on this left-hand menu, I'm going to go into automation. And we're going to go ahead and create a new workflow from scratch. So we're going to create a workflow in this top right corner, and then we're going to continue to start from scratch. So the first step that we need to take in this workflow is essentially sorting the people based on when they came into the workflow. So that is done through an if-else conditional split. So I'm going to set this up for the month of June that is upcoming. So those are the dates that we're going to be using. So with this first step, we are going to choose an if-else conditional split. And this condition is it on or before the, let's see, we'll make this newsletter always sent out on Wednesday. So the first Wednesday in June is the 7th. So is it on or before the 7th? That is what we want to know, and this branch will be yes, it is on or before the 7th. So in this segments area, we're just going to set this up for a date time, and then we're going to do current day of the month is on or before the 7th. There we go. So that is going to be our first split. So somebody would come into this workflow, say on the 2nd, they would come in and they would say, okay, I'm just going to wait. Is it on or before the 7th? Yes. So they would be shuttled into this section here. So I'm going to go ahead and save that. And then the way that we found to set these up the most accurately is to have an event start date for each of these branches. So the event is essentially just when is your newsletter sending out. So the action that we're going to search for is event start date. So the event start date for this example is going to be a specific date and time. So the specific date and time is going to be June 7th, and we will say that this newsletter goes out at 9 a.m. All right, so the date and time is 6/7 at 9 a.m. There we go. So the next thing that we're going to do here, because this is setting the event start date, so when is your newsletter going to be sent, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to put a wait step here to hold people in when they come into this. And it is going to be not a time delay, it's going to be based on the event appointment time. So what we want to do is we want to send out the newsletter at this specific time that we have set. So you can do a before time and after time. I'm just going to set it for the exact time. It's going to go ahead and push people through at 9 a.m. on the 7th. All right, so we will go ahead here and save this action. Well, let's just change this wait step. So we're waiting until 9 a.m. There we go. So that's our wait step. The next step is going to be an email, right? So we want to send our newsletter email here. And we can go through with these custom values from the user full name, from the user email. This will be our subject line number 1, because we're also going to build this out to resend if the person does not open the newsletter on the first send. Since there's a week in between our newsletters, in this example, that's plenty of time to give somebody to open and then resend it if they haven't opened it yet. So this is going to be the body of your email here. All right, let's do newsletter subject number 1, and we'll save. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add in the have they opened the email or not if else conditional split. This is optional. You absolutely don't have to do this, but if you are using Mailgun as your email sending provider, then you can track who opens the emails, and then you can resend it based on if they have or if they haven't opened those emails. So the next thing that we're going to do here is we're going to put in another wait step. And this is going to be based on an email event. And then we're going to pick the email. So we want to do newsletter subject 1. And then the email event is opened. And then we're going to put a timeout on this. Basically, how long are we waiting for that email to be opened? We'll say 2 days for that. So this is wait 2 days or until email opened. There we go. So go ahead and save that wait step. All right, from here we're going to put our if else conditional split if they opened the email or not. So we're just going to go, we're going to add another action, and it's going to be an if else conditional split, and this split is did they open the email? And this branch will be yes they did. So we are waiting for an event, and it is an email event, and the event is that the event is that they opened the email. Okay, so we'll save that. So you can see here it creates a split. Did they open the email? Yes, they did. Or did they not open the email? So right now, we are going to leave this yes. We're going to focus on the no, they didn't open the email. So what you're basically going to do here is you're going to just copy your text from this email. So I'm just going to go ahead and copy the entire action to build this out. But obviously this is a template that you can duplicate and just reuse month to month. So you're just going to be plugging in your new email copy into each of these. So this resend for the newsletter is going to be your newsletter subject number 2, and this is going to be subject line number 2. Essentially, you're sending the exact same body of your email. The wording is all the same. You're just picking a different subject line that maybe is going to be a little bit more grabby to the people who didn't open it on the first go. So then we are going to save that action, and we will save. There we go. So in this, did they open the email for this section, you can absolutely add a tag here. So we might want to add a contact tag that they opened the email. Just so that we are keeping track of who is engaged with our communications. This is especially useful if you're just starting an account, because then you can really get a good idea of, okay, who is actually opening my email? We're tagging them based on if they open it. So there we go. We're just going to save. Now, the good thing about this workflow, because you can see it already is looking like a little complicated, right? The good thing about the workflow, though, is that this same exact process happens every week. So what we can do as we're building it out is we can just duplicate this process. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go up to this first step, the if-else conditional split that we did that was sorting them by the date. I'm just going to copy all of the actions from there. Okay, and then I'm going to put them here because this is sorting. Is it on or before the 7th of the month? And if it is not, if it's like after the 7th of the month, they're going to go on to this next step. So this is where we're going to set the next date. So I'm just going to paste everything in here. All right, so now all we have to do is go in and change the dates, right? So we're going for the next Wednesday of the month, which is going to be the 14th. So we're going to go in here, we're going to edit this step. Is it on or before the 14th? Yes, current day is on or before the 14th. There we go. So we're just going to save that action. Okay, and then we also need to go and change our event start for that week. So we're going to change that to 6/14 at 9 a.m. The specific date and time is 6/14 at 9 a.m. So there we go. Now, all of the rest of this obviously is already built out. So yes, it looks like a big, scary workflow that has a whole lot of stuff going on, but it's so easy because you can just duplicate week after week to build it out. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go here. I'm going to copy all the actions from there, and I'm just going to do the same thing, copy them into this none area here. Is it on or before the 14th? So obviously we're going to change that to our next. So is it on or before the 21st? And then the current day of the month is on or before the 21st. All right. So we have changed the date here. Then we just go and change it with this event start date. So we'll go back and we'll do the 21st at 9 a.m. We will save that action. And then we're just going to do it one more time. Copy all actions from here, put them here, and then it is changing this date to the 28th. And to the 28th. We'll save, and then we're going to go and we're going to change our date here to the 28th at 9 a.m. and here we go. So there we go. So it did take a little bit of time to build out this first step, but once you have done that, all you have to do is copy, 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 and then all of it is built out essentially. We still have to add a couple little finishing touches here. Obviously, if you are using this template and you get into a month where you have 5 Wednesdays or whatever day your newsletter gets sent out, if it happens 5 times in that month, you just do what exactly we just did. You just go in here and copy all the actions from there and essentially just add another week here at the end. So the next step that we need to do with this workflow is people have to have a way. So if somebody comes in on the 2nd and they come in and they get sorted, yes, it's on or before the 7th. They come in here, they hang around until 9 a.m. on the first Wednesday, and then they go through this workflow. If we don't add steps here at the end of these 2 little legs, then they're just going to drop out of this workflow. Obviously, that's not what we want because we want them to continue to get our newsletter every week. So we're just going to add a couple go-to steps at the end of these. And this is really where it starts to look extra crazy because it has all of the little paths that are marked, all these little dotted lines. So I waited till the end to add these just so you can see how it's built out and the bones of it before we start adding kind of all of this extra noise with these go-to steps, because it does, it just gets a little hairy. So we're just going to continue to add these go-to steps for each of these, right? Because at the end of every week, we want to make sure that they go and they get added into the next week's newsletter sequence. And I'm just dragging them and putting them up to the next event start time, and then that'll drop them right back down into this next wait step. So we're just going to continue with this, adding our go-to steps to the following week. And then we will add this one here to the following week. Okay, so now you can see it's looking a little crazy, admittedly, but it's really not that bad. So this is essentially the whole thing built out. Now, how do you use this month after month? So essentially what you are going to want to do, you have this example newsletter. So you have your newsletter flow built out here. So probably the easiest way to do this is you get this set up for the month. Whenever you are kind of beginning or planning for your next month's newsletter content, what you can do is you can go ahead and just clone this newsletter template. So I'm going to back out of workflows here. And I'm just going to find this newsletter example. We're going to go to this little drop-down menu here, and we are going to duplicate the workflow. Okay, so just this will be like number 2 there. So that's going to clone the workflow. So obviously if we were setting this up then for July, you would need to first go in and adjust your dates. So you want to adjust the date here in this if-else conditional split, because this is how it is going to sort people based on when they come into this workflow. And then you want to change your event start date for each of your weeks as well, because that's when the workflow is going to know when to send the email. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 things you have to change for the bones of the email to make sure that it is functioning and sending everything out on time. And then from there, it's just opening up these emails and plugging in the text, the body of your email. As you guys know, we recommend that, especially with something like a sequence like this, on a big complicated workflow or even a simple workflow, we recommend drafting your emails in something like Google Sheets or a Word document, somewhere outside of SocialFox. So you have all of that copy, and then all it takes is for you to copy that, come in here with your newsletter email, paste it into this section here, change the subject line, and then we'll save. And then you just go to this second version here. It's the same copy. So you take that same email, you copy it in here, and all you have to do is change the subject line to the alternate subject line. So that's the way we found is the most easiest. Now, how do you get people from your original workflow into your next month workflow? So this is like, for example, this is newsletter example number 2, right? So how do we get the people who are in the June workflow for this newsletter into the July workflow for the newsletter? So I'm going to go back to our first one that we built out here. And what I'm going to do at the very end is I'm just essentially going to add them to another workflow. So they get through, did they open the email, they get tagged, or they get the email resent. So what I'm going to do from here is I'm just going to add a step that is add to workflow. And then you are given a little box here to select the workflow that you're going to do. So we are going to add them into newsletter example number 2, right? And then we are going to go ahead and save that action. And then what we can do is we can just create a little go-to step from here to where this person also gets added into the next workflow. So once you get toward the end of the current month that you're in, go ahead and duplicate the workflow and adjust the dates, even if you don't necessarily have the newsletters loaded in there, like the actual content of it. You can go ahead and create the next month's workflow, and people will just automatically be shuttled into that next month's workflow, and we'll just then be waiting for that first week. So this is how we found to be a really great way to deliver a weekly, or this could be every other week, every month, however you want to set this up for your specific system and how often you're communicating with your customers. But we found this to be a really accurate and reliable way to deliver that consistent communication that puts people and drops them into the current week, basically, the current week that your email is going live, that your newsletter is going live. So they might get into this workflow through a tag. If you have a tag like for your newsletter subscribers, you could add them in directly. If they are opting into your newsletter from a form, then maybe that would be the way that you would trigger this workflow. Just really depends on how your system is set up. But essentially, once somebody subscribes to your newsletter and you get them in here, then they will just continue to be cycled through week by week. And all you have to do is change the dates on the new month and then plug in your new newsletter copy for each of these emails. So hopefully this has been helpful for you guys. We get this request a lot to help build out a newsletter workflow. So I think that this is going to be really helpful for all of you to get this newsletter going. So it's like one less barrier to, well, I want to send a newsletter, but I don't really know how to set it up. So this kind of takes that out of the equation. We've walked through how to set it up. and how to adjust it month by month. And then now you guys just need to get out there and get sending newsletters. So, like I said, hopefully this has been helpful. Let us know if you have any questions, and we will see you in the next Spotlight training.